gives power to the one individual, and that's where that's where I think our strength exists with consumers and with businesses. We've had calls from businesses, frankly, who've been victims of fraud too.
Yeah.
And businesses are far less likely to report that they have been a victim of fraud. They'd rather just write it off and ignore it because it doesn't, for some reason, makes them seem as if they're not as business savvy. But again, when we can look at those
that you don't have the proper controls in place,
absolutely,
that's,
absolutely,
which can be detrimental to your audit system.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, but as we get those things and we can look at the patterns, that's very important for us. Again, as we work with law enforcement and other partners to be able to say this is what's happening. We send out alerts, something that we talk about here on WJOB. We have a wide array of people that we get this information out in hopes that we prevent it from happening to your neighbor or your family member.
Right. So education is really one of your primary roles.
Absolutely. That's what
is educating them on what to do and how to do it and what the frauds are. What are some of the top frauds, I guess?
We have talked before on this program, but something called the grandparent scam is huge, and that's where you get a phone call to a senior person and they say, hi grandma, and they pretend to be your grandchild and they ask for money. We've seen that grow and develop with Facebook. We talked about this last time because of the information that's on Facebook.
Sure, the social media.
Yeah, they're able to really access that information in ways before the senior would say, it just doesn't sound right, or the information isn't quite right. Now they can get that information pretty pinpointed and make it very believable. So that's a big one.
And it sounds almost so ridiculous to somebody that somebody would call into somebody and say, hey grandma, this is your grandson and I'm in trouble and I need money wired to Tibet because I happen to be in trouble here.
Yeah, I'm backpacking.
Right, I'm backpacking through Tibet, but it's realistic.
Absolutely.
And the problem is these people are professionals. They're almost trained in their craft, and they'll say things like, the moment the grandparent says, is this Billy?
Right.
Well, they seize on that.
They're like,
and then
yes,
absolutely,
it is Billy.
Billy.
Yeah, and Billy. The other one that we see, and this is more on the business side, is frauds are taking the business name and sending out phishing emails. So as a consumer, you may get an email, and this happens actually to financial institutions all the time, is it looks as if it's from your bank.
Yep.
There's a link. They ask you to go and verify your PIN number, your account number. You go onto that website, you enter information that you should not enter, and all of a sudden they now have your account information, your PIN number, your social security number. That's a huge one. Actually, the Better Business Bureau was victim of that this year. There was an email going around to businesses saying, we're the Better Business Bureau, send us your information. So even we are not immune to folks taking advantage of our good name.
Well, no, phishing scams are, really, there's countless different variations of them, so it's hard to stay on top of it. But I guess the point with that is really consumers, unless you initiate the contact, you really shouldn't give out any personal information under any circumstances.
Absolutely.
Right?
And if you get an email from your bank, and I get emails from my bank, if you get something and you think this is valid and they're asking for information from me, what you want to do is to call them on the phone, and you have called them, you've initiated that contact, and ask what it is that they need.
But at the same time, be careful. Don't use the phone number that's on the email.
No, absolutely. You want to use the phone number that...
Look it up in the phone book, go to the internet, and look up the actual company's website.
Their company website, which is another thing that you have to be careful about going to website, because there's a lot of mirror websites, and
I know
it's very, you have to be constantly vigilant about this sort of thing.
It's like the good old-fashioned yellow pages. I never use it anymore, but sometimes maybe it's not such a bad idea to bust them out. You're listening to WJOB 1230. 845-1100. If you have any questions whatsoever about any things that you think might be scams, if you want to give general examples of businesses, of issues that you've had, I don't know that we want to get into specific names of any businesses or anything like that, or just questions in general about the Business Bureau, Better Business Bureau. Well, it's almost hard to say.
You can just say BBB.
The BBB, that's even harder, so I'm not going to do that.